Our expectations of home ed rarely meet the reality that we are faced with, and whatever your expectations are, this gem of a book, which I've recently finished reading, is here to guide you along the way. It's called Reality versus Expectation, the Home Ed Guide You Didn't Know You Needed by Ellen Morrigan. And I'm going to talk you through it a little bit. Whether your expectation is that you couldn't possibly home educate, or you're expecting your home ed life to be totally chilled, hours spent in nature, your kids getting totally involved in the activities that you set them, the reality of home education in the UK is all laid out here. Now, you might recognise this name because Ellen is a very active admin on the Heifer Facebook group. She has helped so many people, including myself, when I had the LA turn up on my doorstep. She kindly took the time out of her own home educating day to help support me through the process that I needed to follow and find out what was going on with this surprise visit. Having said that, she does not even know I'm making this video. It is by no means sponsored or anything, but I'm just talking about a book that I loved like I've done before. You know, this is someone that understands the life of home educators when they include in their book a too long didn't read section, a cheat sheet as she calls it, of kind of frequently asked questions such as, is home education legal? Who do I need to ask permission from? Can I get funding? Do I have to pay for exams myself? Can my child go back to school if it doesn't work out? I'm worried about report writing, which I see a lot. So I would highly recommend reading the whole book, but if you need some quick fire answers, then she has those all laid out for you at the back. This book is great if you have just started out home educating, or you are thinking about doing it and have some concerns, or even if you have been home educating for a while now, because we all have our wobble days and the days when we need a bit of reassurance, or there's something that we haven't come across before, especially as our children are getting older and we're dealing with new challenges. Okay, outfit change, because the reality of home ed life, or mum life in general, is that I didn't get to finish filming the video before. Let's dive straight in with a chapter that you are unlikely to find in any other homeschooling book that you have read before, because let's face it, most home education homeschooling books are by non-British authors, and that is a chapter on the local authority, which I know is going to appeal to a lot of you, and I love this book for that reason. And for so many of us, the expectation is that dealing with the local authority is going to be awful, and writing reports is going to be a highly stressful experience that we're not going to know how to navigate. But this chapter gives you the reality with the legalities to back it up, so you really know where you stand, and almost more importantly, where the local authority stand and what their legal rights actually are. So just to read you a part that I love to give you an idea. The LA's duty is to children who are not receiving an education. So when they make informal inquiries and you provide information, it's to confirm that your child is not within their remit. And there's another part which I really like that she says earlier on in the chapter, because it reminds me of something I spoke about in my final update on the local authorities report writing process video, about having to remind myself that even though I got good feedback, how much weighting should that have in how I feel about how our home education is going. They are not there to tell you what a good job they've decided you are doing, or to approve of the education you are providing. They are not there to monitor the education or tell you what you should or shouldn't be doing. Their entire job is to check that the education objectively meets the legal requirements of Section 7 of the Education Act 1996, being full-time, efficient and suitable to that child. So I'm going to go a lot more into this sort of thing in the report writing video, which I have been promising for ages, but it is coming. But yeah, I decided I'm going to release it once I reach my 4,000 watch hours target, and I'm only 500-ish hours off, so it could be soon. But in the meantime, as always, if you have any questions about the LA, feel free to ask, or go and grab yourself a copy of this book because it will help you out a lot. Oh, thanks. There's a strawberry and white chocolate. It's a brownie, but it looks pinkish to me. Hard. Anyway, yeah, another part of this book that I really liked was the deschooling. Now, we've talked about deschooling a fair bit on this channel, like it comes up a lot because it is really an integral part, I suppose, of home education. I spoke about deschooling, I wrote this down in my how to start home education video, and it was point 4 if you wanted to go and have a look at that after this video. Like I said before, it's a huge topic, but I think this book does a good job of explaining the reality of it and how it applies to both our children and us as adults. Let me read you another little section here that I highlighted. I do love a good highlight. Schools have become the centralised and accepted organisation in which we in our society believe people can and do receive an education, and we've been schooled or conditioned to believe this as a fact, even though it's not. Spoiler, education is nothing to do with school as an institution, and in the context of home education, understanding this and applying it is exactly what deschooling is all about. And that's totally something I still struggle with. Like I've spoken before, you know, I still get thoughts that come into my head like, oh, if my child sits down with a printout and uses a pen to do something, then there's a part of me that feels more satisfied that that's some type of real learning going on, and that is because that's how it's done in school, and that's something that I'm to this day working to get out of my head. So it was great to read this chapter on deschooling, and it's something that I think probably even people who've been home educating for years have to constantly remind themselves that learning doesn't have to look how it looks in school. There's obviously also a really good section on deschooling for children and how it looks like if they've just come out of the school system and need to decompress or recover from any traumatic experiences that have happened there, and what the reality of that is going to look like for a lot of children, which to an adult and the person supposed to be home educating them could look like really nothing is going on and nothing is being achieved. But Ellen really helps to make clear the reality of what is going on for children when they come out of the school system. Home education styles, self-directed learning and unschooling. There are a couple of great chapters in the book covering those areas. The author talks through some of the more common home ed styles that you've probably already aware of. There's a couple in here that I haven't actually seen really in other books, which is game schooling, which actually we've been incorporating a little bit into our home ed life at the moment recently. Now my kids are getting to that sort of age. And then world schooling, which is more like the dream, you know. And I found the way she approaches the chapter on unschooling and self-directed education as really useful. There was something similar in, I think, Naomi Fisher's book, probably her second one. And Ellen breaks it down like making a cup of tea and all the learning that can come out in something like that. But what I love is how she says, we open ourselves up to labelling much more activity as learning than we first thought, and helps us to see that learning is not the subjects of English and maths and geography and science. It is the interplay between a person and the environment they are in, and what they then do with that and are supported to do with that to grow and develop. It's why all activities are educational. And I think if we can adapt our minds to think of life in that way, like, it really opens our eyes to how much learning our kids are doing just constantly all the time. And I know a lot of people who are new to home education worry that they don't have the skills or the experiences needed to home educate their child. People who don't home educate, or sometimes people who do, saying, oh, I was terrible at maths at school, how am I ever supposed to be able to teach that to my children? And it says, the idea of parents as educators has been essentially decimated in favour of separating parents from their children for early enrolment into the school system. But the reality is that we are perfectly capable of meeting our child's needs. We've just been schooled out of believing it. Moving on, and another really great part of this book is where she discusses home education in practice. There's a chapter called Just That, and also a chapter about when home ed is a struggle. And whatever your expectations, the reality is that sometimes home ed will feel like a struggle. So some of the realities that she discusses in this section include home ed parents also need to be far more proactive in ensuring opportunities are available to their children, because there is no big building full of other children for you to send your child to daily. And that is a reality. We are solely responsible for the activities and learning opportunities that our children have. We can't just pass them off to someone else to do that, and for them to just be in a room full of other kids, whether they like them or not, all day. we do have to engineer those opportunities to some degree. But what I love that she says about these friendships that we can help engineer is how much easier it is to support children's social growth when you are actually active within the realm of it happening, rather than getting second-hand information from school. And this really is so true, because I think being out of school does shield children from some of the things that are more likely to happen in school, but not completely. Like, kids can still pick up on certain behaviours, etc. The main advantage of it being that you can be there to deal with it directly. It doesn't have to wait until it comes to you as second-hand information, if it even does come to you at all. You more often than not know about it within minutes of it happening and can help your children to navigate that situation if so needed. And some of the things she covers in the chapter on when home ed is a struggle include finances, burnout, unhealed pain, deschooling, confidence, like the list goes on. Like I said before, like whether you are new to home ed or you've been doing it for a long time, I really think you're going to get a lot of reassurance and or guidance from that chapter. Like, it really helped me a lot. We're almost there, and I'm about to end up with one of the sections that's probably one of my favourites, and I've seen this in a couple of other books, but this one really brings a lot of new perspectives, and that is the myths and misconceptions of home education. A lot of these you are going to have heard before from people who don't understand how home education works, or the reality is you might have had some of these thoughts yourself. So some of the myths and misconceptions that she talks about: home education happens at home. Like, I've talked about that in another video about home education yet barely at home. Some people actually believe that home education is illegal, or they don't know it's legal. So she covers that up in a very, UK specific way. The myth that home ed children lack social skills. And another really big one, the what about GCSEs thing, that home educated children can't get qualifications, go to college or university. So yeah, a really great chapter clearing up any myths that you might still have or misconceptions. Really reassuring. There is loads more in this book. I'm not going to spoil it all for you. There is a great chapter on neurodivergence, safeguarding. There is a chapter on the educational outcomes of home educated people, which I know a lot of you are really going to love reading that chapter. So yeah, go and grab yourself a copy from someone who has been knee-deep in the trenches of the home ed world for quite a while now. I really think this is going to help out a lot of people. If you are like me and love reading books about homeschooling, home education, you might like some of the ones I talked about in this other video here. And I will catch you on the next video.